Why does losing $100 feel worse than winning $100? Imagine you find $20 on the street. You feel great. Maybe you smile. Maybe you treat yourself to lunch. Now imagine you reach into your pocket and discover that $20 is missing. Gone. Same $20, but these two experiences do not feel the same, do they? The finding feels good, but the losing feels worse. Not equally bad, not the same intensity mirrored. Genuinely, measurably, scientifically worse. And this is not a quirk of personality. It is not something that happens to people who are bad with emotions. It happens to virtually everyone. Across cultures, across income levels, across ages. This phenomenon has a name: loss aversion. And it was discovered by two psychologists, Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, whose work on human judgment was so groundbreaking that Kahneman eventually won the Nobel Prize in economics, not in psychology, in economics. Because understanding how people actually make decisions, rather than how they should make them, changed the entire field. Today we are going to explore loss aversion completely, how it was discovered, what the research actually shows about how powerful it is, where it shows up in your everyday life in ways you almost certainly have not noticed, and what you can do to make better decisions once you understand it. In the 1970s, Kahneman and Tversky ran a series of elegant experiments. In one of the most famous, they gave participants a simple choice. Option A, you receive $100 for certain. Option B, you flip a coin. Heads, you receive $250. Tails, you receive nothing. Mathematically, option B is better. The expected value is $125. But most people chose option A. Then they flipped the scenario. Option A, you lose $100 for certain. Option B, you flip a coin. Heads, you lose nothing. Tails, you lose $250. Now option A is mathematically better. Expected loss of 100 versus expected loss of 125, but this time, most people chose option B. They preferred to gamble rather than accept a certain loss. This is the core insight of prospect theory. People are not consistent risk evaluators. They are risk-averse when it comes to gains. They take the sure thing. And risk-seeking when it comes to losses. They gamble to avoid the certain loss. The frame changes everything. Kahneman and Tversky quantified this asymmetry. On average, losses feel approximately 2 times more powerful than equivalent gains. Losing $100 hurts roughly as much as winning $200 feels good. This ratio, approximately 2 to 1, has been replicated in dozens of studies. Across different cultures, different demographics, different types of decisions. Now let us look at where loss aversion actually shows up. Because once you know the pattern, you will start seeing it everywhere. The first and most financially significant place? Investing. Studies consistently show that investors feel the pain of a loss in their portfolio roughly twice as much as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. This leads to a predictable and costly behavior called myopic loss aversion. Investors who check their portfolios frequently, daily or weekly, see more losses, feel more pain, and make worse decisions than investors who check infrequently. The more often you look, the more pain you feel. The more pain you feel, the more likely you are to sell at the wrong time. Research by Benartzi and Thaler showed that investors shown annual returns, rather than monthly, made significantly better investment decisions. Same data, different time frame, fewer visible losses, less pain, better choices. The solution to myopic loss aversion is not more willpower, it is fewer checkpoints. The second major area, jobs and salary negotiation. Loss aversion makes people irrationally attached to their current situation, even when changing would make them objectively better off. Leaving a job feels like losing something you have, even if what you would gain is significantly better. Psychologists call this the status quo bias, the powerful tendency to prefer whatever you already have. In salary negotiations, loss aversion cuts both ways. Employees are less willing to ask for raises because asking and being rejected feels like a loss, even though the status quo is unchanged. And employers are more willing to offer perks than salary increases, because salary cuts feel devastating, while benefits feel like additions. Both sides driven by the same asymmetry. The third area, relationships. People stay in relationships that are not working far longer than is rational. Because ending a relationship feels like losing something. The sunk cost of time, emotion, and identity invested makes leaving feel like a greater loss than staying feels like a problem. Now let us go deeper into one of the most fascinating expressions of loss aversion, the endowment effect. Researchers give half the participants in a study a coffee mug. Then they ask the mug owners, what is the minimum price you would sell this mug for? And they ask the non-owners, what is the maximum you would pay for this mug? The result is consistent and striking. Mug owners consistently demand about twice as much to sell the mug as non-owners are willing to pay for it. The mug has not changed. The market has not changed, but ownership, even brief ownership of just a few minutes, fundamentally changes how people value an object. Simply owning something makes it worth more to you. The endowment effect explains why people overprice their own homes, why you keep clothes in your wardrobe you have not worn in years, why sellers and buyers so often cannot agree on price. And it explains one of the most powerful marketing tactics in existence, the free trial. The free trial is loss aversion weaponized as a business model. Companies offer you something for free, knowing that once you use it, once you feel like you own it, giving it up will feel like a loss. Not a saving, a loss. That psychological shift from potential customer to loss-averse owner is worth billions of dollars to subscription businesses every year. Once you understand loss aversion, you will see it used against you everywhere. 4 of the most common marketing tactics. 1. Framing gains as avoided losses. Stop wasting money on energy bills. Works better than save money on energy. Neurologically different, same outcome. 2. Penalty framing. In one famous experiment, teachers given bonus money up front, told they must return it if students do not improve, achieved significantly better student outcomes than teachers offered the same bonus at the end. Losing motivates more than winning. 3. The decoy of losing your spot. Your card is about to expire. Someone else is looking at this room right now. Your reservation will be released in 10 minutes. All manufactured loss scenarios. Creating ownership of something you do not technically own yet. 4. Loyalty program lock-in. Once you have accumulated points, miles, or rewards, the thought of losing them by switching to a competitor is more powerful than any benefit the competitor could offer. You are not loyal to the brand. You are afraid of the loss. Now let us look at the broader research. First, the 2-to-1 ratio is not fixed. Research by Tversky and Kahneman showed the loss aversion coefficient vary significantly. It increases when stakes are higher. It increases when the domain is more personal. And it decreases when people have more experience in a domain. Professional traders show lower loss aversion than novices. And research on loss aversion across species is particularly fascinating. Research with capuchin monkeys by Keith Chen and colleagues showed that when monkeys were taught to trade tokens for food, they displayed clear loss aversion behavior. Without any training, without any cultural context. This suggests loss aversion may be evolutionarily ancient, wired into the brain long before complex human cognition. And perhaps most importantly, awareness of loss aversion does not automatically protect you from it. Kahneman himself, who spent decades studying cognitive biases, acknowledged that knowing about a bias does not eliminate it. The biases happen in the fast, automatic part of the brain. Awareness happens in the slow, deliberate part. They operate on different time scales. So if awareness alone does not protect you, what does? The answer is not eliminating loss aversion. You cannot. It is too deep in the brain. The answer is building systems that account for it, that put distance between the feeling and the decision. Here are 5 evidence-based strategies that actually work. Strategy 1. Reframe every decision in terms of opportunity cost, not loss. Instead of, "I will lose my job security if I leave," ask, "What am I giving up by staying?" Loss aversion only fires strongly on visible losses. Making the invisible cost visible levels the playing field. Strategy 2. The pre-mortem technique. Before any significant decision, imagine it is 1 year in the future and it went badly. What happened? Work backward. This forces your brain to evaluate the downside risk before loss aversion locks you in. You get the loss-averse scrutiny working for you instead of against you. Strategy 3. Create distance from specific dollar amounts. A 5% portfolio decline feels less visceral than watching a specific number drop. This is why financial advisors talk about percentages. It genuinely helps. Strategy 4. The sleep test. Before any decision driven by fear of loss, sleep on it. Loss aversion peaks in moments of emotional activation, when the countdown is running, when the offer expires tonight. Sleep resets the emotional state. In the morning, the loss usually feels smaller. Strategy 5. Reference point management. Loss aversion is always relative to a reference point. You can consciously choose a different one. Instead of measuring your portfolio against its peak, measure it against where it was 5 years ago. The reference point you choose controls how much pain you feel. Here is the big picture. Loss aversion is not a bug in human psychology. It was a feature. In an environment of genuine scarcity and physical risk, being more sensitive to losses than gains was adaptive. The problem is that modern financial, professional, and social decisions are nothing like the environment loss aversion evolved for. The single most useful thing you can take from this video. Before any significant decision, ask yourself, am I evaluating this based on what I might lose or what I might gain? Neither is automatically right, but knowing which one is driving you gives you the chance to deliberately consider the other side. Loss aversion is not the enemy. Unconscious loss aversion is the enemy. If this changed how you think about decisions you have been avoiding, subscribe. Every week, we break down one behavioral economics concept that explains why rational people make predictably irrational choices. In plain English, no jargon, no judgment. See you next Wednesday.